Hi folks, it's Deana Paqua of EmbodyTheSacred.net, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about the challenges for empaths and the energy sensitive in dealing with narcissistic and toxic personality traits, but also like other disordered personality traits, borderline personality traits. I'm not talking here about labeling anybody, because that's not my area of expertise. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but and we all have some toxic personality traits that are conscious or unconscious, and it's really, our responsibility, our job to take responsibility for those and lessen their impact on others, but also be aware of how, others' personality challenges and behaviors and traits affect us, especially the energy sensitive, right? Because we can sometimes overreact or just become completely depleted or defeated by others' intense energy, emotions, and personality disorder traits. Okay, so narcissism has really become almost a cliche at this point, because we've seen it play out, on the world stage and here in our own country, just, with larger than life politicians and celebrities, and, just seeing it play out in different ways, and, and how that's also affected us and brought it to the surface, so that we can examine these traits in ourselves and then also figure out healthier and more balanced ways to create healthy boundaries with others, but also how can we stop growing humans, that really have this exaggerated sense of self-importance, or either just, they're always the victim, they're never wrong. There's some really difficult manifestations. And part of it comes from our Western culture of just, forging ahead with that path of individuality at the expense of the community, right? At the expense of the greater good. And with all the changes that are going on, even in the cosmos, with all this Aquarian energy coming in, it's really a time for us to gather together and to help each other and to really create systems and relationships that are more balanced and unifying. White supremacy and racism, that's another form of cultural narcissism. So, we have these larger patterns, and then we have these interpersonal ones. So where we can make the most impact, unless we have a large audience, is really on our own personal level, right? So, for empaths, we sometimes don't even realize that we're, being gaslighted or manipulated. And sometimes we can even do the same to others. So we really, it's awareness and really trusting your inner sense and your gut. Even myself, I'm pretty energy sensitive, and, would say that I have a pretty good BS detector, but I've also been fooled. I've also, cared about people and become emotionally involved with folks who, had some of these traits, and then it ended up being, a very unhealthy situation. So, almost everyone I know has experienced, unfortunately, these types of relationships. And that usually goes back pretty far in our lives, like to, maybe other authority figures, family members, teachers, even peers, right? I experienced a lot of bullying and, like many other folks, and, different types of abuse in various relationships over the years. And they start to, it starts to take its toll. And sometimes we become numbed to the signs, the red flags, right? So let's kind of like revisit some of those so we can remind ourselves. And also, one way that we can really discern, like, are we off? Is there something going on with us? Is it me? is have a really good uh, community support. Like, have friends who are really good truth tellers, or family members, or your partner who will tell you the truth. Like, hey, yeah, that was not cool that you said that, or that was, definitely you were radiating some anger or judgment with what you were saying. They'll call you out on it. And and hopefully in a compassionate way as much as they can, right? So having our community support, where we can go to and run things past and say, hey, what do you think about this interaction that I had? Like, I grew up with social anxiety and selective mutism, which is an anxiety disorder as well. And, kind of like a lot of social awkwardness, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. And difficulties communicating. And one of the reasons for me why that was, I was an only child, so I didn't have like siblings to kind of, work things through, but also just being really, really shy. And, so I had to like really push myself. My parents were not magicians, and they also had their own stuff going on, where they could magically make all my problems go away. So I suffered with a lot of like anxiety related disorders over the years, including OCD and dealing with depression. So pretty much throughout my life. And, it was my finding holistic and more spiritual forms of healing that really made a huge difference for me. Plus having really amazing clinical mental health professionals that I've worked with for many, many years who are just fabulous. So it's really kind of the gamut there. But having that good support, having, good therapy available if you can, having the truth tellers in your life who will, help you navigate some of these challenging issues, but also like cleansing and clearing our own energy, cutting energetic cords, making sure our own energetic boundaries are intact. And then also, when we're interacting with folks, trusting our gut, trusting, that if something feels off, we may not be wrong. So, all of those things are really important. But even with all of that awareness, we can still be fooled. Those on the narcissism scale, are very charismatic often, right? And they can really draw us in. And, or there are folks who have other, toxic traits who put people up on pedestals and, or really want to elevate you and pay you a lot of compliments. And that's how they draw you in. And then, you say something that doesn't resonate with them, or they feel like they're being emotionally abandoned because you're, trying to draw their attention to taking responsibility for something in their lives that they've been complaining about for 10 years. And you finally had enough of hearing it. And then, they twist the whole situation around. And if they were close to you, use what they know about you and your own vulnerabilities and your own stories and, manipulate them into half-truths and, kind of like they really just sort of create their own realities or accuse you of attacking them when you're just being, honest about something or trying to, again, call their attention to something that they might want to look at or take responsibility for instead of complaining, about the same problem for 10 years. So it can be really tough to navigate these things. So that's why, again, having really good support in terms of our friends and family members who we can rely on to give us a reality check, or colleagues that we can, run these things past, because, as empaths, we think that everything is our fault and that, others' emotions are ours, right? So we really have to get clear, is this mine, right? Is this mine? And, if the relationship really becomes so toxic and, if this is a person that will never admit their part in an issue, will never take responsibility, always has to be right, has an inflated sense of ego and self-righteousness, and especially if they're dealing with their own insecurities or maybe a lot of guilt. They'll often say you're projecting your stuff on them when it's really, unfortunately, them projecting. And it can be really, and they will manipulate and twist the situation until the cows come home. So sometimes, the better part of valor is to just gently and carefully walk away. Say, I'm sorry, take responsibility for your part of it. And then, if it becomes too difficult or too much water under the bridge, especially if, with narcissists and other disordered thinking patterns, they can really come after us and really attack us. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of some interesting emails. Thankfully, not that often, but everything from bosses to friends, unfortunately, though thankfully not many, only very, very few. But still, those hurtful character assaults definitely stay with us. And thankfully, in those times, I had some very trusted allies that I was able to say, hey, am I doing this? Is this me? And, they were able to help me, navigate through that. So it's really important, again, to have support and to take responsibility for our own toxic personality traits, and to have good boundaries, to have good energetic protection and hygiene, and to also look at these patterns on the collective level, right? That they're really sort of part of our culture and society, unfortunately, and we're amplifying them by, some of the practices that we have, even social media and selfies and all of that. It's not the cause, but it certainly can contribute, right, to the self-absorption. So, oh my goodness. So anyway, I hope that my little sharing here was helpful. I've unfortunately known a lot of folks, including myself, who have gone through, various challenging relationships, but it's really, one of the biggest ways that we learn here on this planet is how we interact with others. So I'm always looking to improve myself, and thankfully have had and still have some really great healers and therapists that I've worked with over the years that have helped me navigate through some of these more challenging times. And, with the spiritual practices that I've had for a long time, and the shamanic work that I do, I'm not really able to get away with a whole lot anymore. And I'm glad, it's not fun, but, if somebody says I'm projecting, it's highly unlikely, because I'm pretty clear, about what my responsibility is. And, relationships are 50-50. So if somebody is holding you accountable for 100% of the problems, we have our 50%, but it's not all us. So if someone doesn't want to take responsibility for their part, or they're shaming and blaming and character assaulting, when they were somebody who manipulated and lied to the people closest to them, might be something there to look at. And maybe the best course of action is to put up really good boundaries, or unfortunately, sometimes we have to walk away. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that this let some folks know that you're not the only one, right? And to, gather like-minded souls, stable people, loyal friends. And that can take some time to build if we've been in, abusive relationships for a while, or seen, a lot of repeat patterns. And, we have to kind of build that trust slowly. But there's some really good people out there. So, and anyway, if I can offer any more ideas or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm also going to put some links down below this video for some good resources that you can check out on these topics. But check back again, or if you want to subscribe to my videos, certainly do that, or you can check out my website for more information about my classes and services for empaths, energy healers, and the energy sensitive. Thank you so much.